Nobody wants to use Adobe. Poor billionaires. Oh, they're not gonna afford their 7th yacht for the year. Oh no. Am I the only one that finds this sort of like demonically cyber voice immensely arousing? Okay, I'm not out of touch. I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. Hello there, YouTube. Today's video and slop of choice is a video by our lovely and deranged animator known as James Lee. An animator of which you should really know about, considering the cultural impact the man has made using his ever so eloquently spoken dulcet tones and ever so delightfully animated animations. And whether you know of this person or not, by the end of today's video, you will truly understand how he has changed us all for the better. Now, some of you may remember that batshit little video that we watched a while ago of James Lee having a mild conniption with Adobe, and how the whole thing with Adobe is kind of like a love-hate relationship, and nowadays Adobe makes me feel like I'm getting proverbial scrotal torsion and all that jazz. And he's made another one. Apparently, a rebound isn't such a thing when the rebound is with the abusive ex that you broke up with originally. Sometimes you just can't let go of that bitch that has their hand around your heart. So, James Lee, please explain to us how you broke up with Adobe in no less than a Amber Heard hearing level of words.
I had finally snapped. My brain was on fire.
I love the way this guy animates.
I was having an aneurysm, an out-of-body experience.
He just has a certain way with his words and his...
desperate and screaming.
What I find great about what he does, by the way, from an animator's perspective, in case you don't know how this works, he is live action in this, right? But from the animation's perspective, he's not only managed to put himself in this, but he's made himself look animated. The way he's done that is that he's basically changed the FPS of his recording of himself so that it's run on 2s, essentially, which is an animation principle that makes things look kind of more smooth, essentially, for an animation purpose. But when you apply that to a character like this, it makes, when you then complement that with sort of animation principles, you can make someone live action look very cartoony. Not to mention that, you know, James has this uncanny ability of rotoscoping his own live action with effects and small little animation principles like his eyes, the little lighting that you see there to complement the background. There's so much about what James Lee does that makes me wetter than a goddamn lovely lady of the streets in London on a Sunday night. Either way, James is a genius, and I love him.
Why are you doing this?
Pay attention to the subtle little things about his animations. One thing to pay attention to, he purposefully over-animates his mouth. Because here's the principle about live action versus animation. The reason why live action adaptations of animes never works, really, is because you can't take those, like, principles of anime and apply them to real life because they look fucking stupid. However, satirically and parody-wise, you can kind of make it work. It's just, you need to do it in the right format. Bleach. Sorry,
corrupted my
Death Note.
Again. 2 days of my best work down the drain. And so I poured every drop of my secret, simmering resentment into a work of video art. Breaking up with Adobe.
Right, so what I'm getting from this is that, our boy here had the unfortunate incident of being shackled to Adobe. It is a love-hate relationship. Nobody wants to use Adobe. I don't want to use Adobe. Adobe fucking sucks. Adobe is quite equivalently the same thing as... By using Adobe, you are doing the equivalent of rubbing your face against sandpaper and then pouring salt on the wound, and then being expected to say thank you for it. Adobe sucks. I hate it. I wish I could use something else, but unfortunately, there aren't that many softwares out there that has everything in the right place in exactly the right way to be able to compensate for what you would lose by not using Adobe. So we're forced to use something that hates us but knows we can't get away from it. So what's happened here is, I can guarantee you this entire video was never meant to be. I guarantee you that what happened was James was working on a project, put so much effort in, lost it all because Adobe is optimized like absolute shit, and for whatever reason, they try and cache all your files in your fucking boot drive for whatever stupid, dumb fuck reason. And, rather than, like, just remaking that project he was working on, he, as he's mentioning, has piled all that pent-up hatred that caused him into a video calling out Adobe for their bullshit. Yeah, that's my prediction.
It was viewed 6 million times across the internet.
Oh, I love this animation.
Resonated. People were tired of their own codependent relationships.
Hell yeah, brother! Hell yeah! Down with Adobe! Down with Adobe!
Still crawling back like a schmuck, night after night, hoping this time would be different. But then one night I watched a tutorial.
Oh my god, wouldn't it be the most ironic thing if the project he lost that caused him to make this video was a sequel to the Adobe animation?
DaVinci Resolve, and something changed in me. I dared to dream. So I built up the courage.
Ooh, don't be that daring.
Said, listen up, toots. You and me, we're done. I'm making this next project without you.
Oh no!
This was a terrible idea. See, I got decades of experience with Adobe software.
See, that's how they get you. They get you addicted to the pain. They make you believe that nothing else could ever hold up to the quality of Adobe. As somebody who really wishes they had the ability to use something other than Adobe, legitimately, this is hitting me right in the feely wheelies. And they make you feel that by even trying something else, you'll be committing enough pain upon yourself that it wouldn't be worth it. Why try something else? You've sunk all this time into Adobe. Why try and learn something new when you're in your comfort zone with Adobe, even if it does kind of occasionally wake you up in the morning by smearing peanut butter on your face and releasing the hounds?
And now I was stuck rebuilding my VFX pipeline from scratch. Everything was annoying, and I kept getting
You just gotta get
stuck
past that
on the most
hurdle.
basic stuff. I felt so lonely.
It's a
The key
painful
difference from
hurdle to
using
get by,
After Effects
but
is
you
that
can do it.
DaVinci Resolve uses a system known as node compositing. The video signal is loaded from the initial node that flow into other nodes which distort.
Okay, real talk. This is the kind of shit that's gonna put Adobe in the dust. So, in case you don't understand what this is, node systems are a logic path system that a lot of softwares are starting to use that simplifies the ability to input alternate and adaptive capabilities to software. Node paths and logic paths are things that softwares like VTube Studio, that VTube softwares are using, that allow you to dynamically adjust, and essentially it's coding. It is layman's coding. It takes a logic path of, okay, this is the thing. If this happens, then this must happen as well. This is essentially the future of engaged product usage. This will be something that you see in so many places, whether it's editing, animation, whatever else. This is already present in so many industries, but it's that barrier, it's that bridging gap between having to learn JavaScript and coding and not understand and wanting to like push your whatever it is you're doing to the next level without having to necessarily, it compacts the complexity of coding into something more tangible, something more visceral, something you can see, understand, and use.
And filter the signal. You can split the signal into multiple streams,
and it gives you such a high such a high ceiling that you can train yourself for, but it makes it
I really started seeing
makes it
benefits of this
doable.
new workflow. It feels less like you're just stacking these.
What it does is it takes away the barrier for entry. It means anybody can pick up a form of coding, and however much effort you're willing to put in is what you get out. That's what this is supposed to be. It takes away the barrier for entry. It means that you can end up wherever you want on that spectrum of quality, and you will be able to understand it. You'll be able to figure it out and learn. And the more you learn, the better it'll be. It is taking away that complexity that coding would require normally. And you can do amazing things. It gives you an immensely high ceiling, skill ceiling, but you can get in and do it. You don't have to worry about figuring out an entire new language just to be able to make things work.
Prefab effects, and more like you're building your own custom machines. Build them once and then reuse them endlessly.
But why doesn't Adobe do this? See prior conversation. Adobe won't do this because they don't feel like they need to. It's the Wacom effect, if you will. For decades, Adobe, Wacom, Disney, if you will, even, they have been the titans of their industry. But as time is going by, their ignorance and hubris for feeling like they are untouchable has led them to stagnate. And now all these other companies that actually are trying to innovate and trying to do better are coming out with all these impressive new ways of doing things that are making these titans realize that, you know, they've not really innovated in years and years. And these new people with new ideas and new innovations are really showing these other guys who've stagnated that there is way more to be done. And that eventually people are going to get fed up of being kind of abused. I know that's how I feel towards Adobe, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are. People are just waiting for something better. People have been looking for a better opportunity.
You can group your machine into a single node, remove any unneeded parameters, and you've essentially made your own friggin' plugin. And there's a whole community of people who make their own, and then they share
Like, Adobe is still going to absolutely have its place.
Dope. And I haven't even spoken about
but it's nice to have
the sound, color,
different options,
pages.
I think.
And I've got nothing to say about it except
like, Adobe will still be useful in some way.
I'm getting a bit emotional right now.
But people have been begging
Another
for
big
different
component to my
options.
work is the sound design, and while Resolve's built-in door is probably capable for most people,
I'm realizing this is all just one big shield for Resolve.
I'll show you what I use to get just that little bit of extra pizzazz.
Yeah.
Reaper, created by the guy that did Winamp. It reminds me of a time when companies used to take pride in their software. It's homely, and I know it doesn't look like much at first, but when you get a little more acquainted, no, babe.
It's kind of funny. I went into this expecting an absolute batshit animation, typically of you'd kind of typically expect from James Lee. This was not what I was expecting. I was not expecting to go into this and actually come out with brain worms going into my ears. I was not expecting coming out of this with a learned experience and having an actual constructive conversation about the media industry. I was not expecting to have a poetic conversation and constructive conversation. James, thank you. I salute you for saying the things that's needed to be said and bringing eyes to a conversation that's been woefully underrepresented. Sure, this might not be the whimsy of a typical James Lee video, but this is still fun, and I like this conversation because it's opening up people's eyes to new opportunities, which I think is truly needed in this day. This is a public service announcement for striving to maybe try something different. Not to, like, relegate Adobe, to say that you don't have to use Adobe, but if you've wanted the opportunity to try something different, James Lee is merely informing you that there are alternative options out there than scrotal torsion.
It's extremely customizable. All of these context-aware cursor tools can be changed. The layout restructured, reskinned.
See, sound design is something I really want to start using more.
Lets you change the finest detail exactly as you want it. I have it set up so that when I rename a track, it automatically recolors and applies the correct settings. But get a load
convenient.
of this shit. This dude made a tool that lets you record video direct to the timeline. Then you can edit it in Reaper. It's like how you record takes to a song, and then you can export.
I went into this thinking I'd be getting some brain rot. I didn't go into this expecting to come out with a little notepad next to me with names of things that I want to try out in my own time. Thank you, James Lee, for being so informative.
Non-destructively into Resolve. How could you not fall in love with that? So for the last few months, I've also been using Affinity Photo, Toon Boom Harmony, Unreal Engine,
okay.
FL Studio, Clip.
Just another thing, by the way, if this doesn't show you quite how intricate being an animator is, I don't know what does. But these softwares, like Toon Boom, that is the animation software I trained on when I was in university. It is an amazing software. If you ever intend on getting into 2D animation, Toon Boom has the ability to make 2D animations look 3D if you really want them to. You can use it to do typical frame-by-frame animation. You can use replacement animation. It's one of the most innovative and mainline animation softwares out there. It's a shame that it unfortunately goes down this typical route of being a typical animation software in the sense that you have to pay stupid amounts of money for it, but it is, at least with Toon Boom, unlike Adobe, when you pay for Toon Boom, you get a complete product that actually cares about your existence. And that is honestly my biggest gripe with most of the music and media industry, is most of these softwares are very predatory of how they charge you. You have to pay like annually to use them. Most of them you don't just buy out, and I find that obnoxious. If there's ever an option where you just pay once and get it, I always choose that, because it is the biggest load of shit and the biggest barrier for entry that people who can't afford these softwares yearly will never get the chance to use them. Like, and I'm not even saying they're like cheap either. Some of these cost £1,000 a year to use. It is ridiculous. No wonder that, like, this is a broader subject about the media industry as a whole not understanding that you need to reduce that barrier for entry to get more people in the door, so you don't have the trickle-down effect of brain drain. Because if you make the barrier for entry that fucking low, sure, you're getting a lot of money out of the people who are using your software, but you have the brain drain because there's not enough people getting into doing animation because they can't afford the software that they need to train on to get into the industry to begin with. Duh. But hey, multi-billionaires need to make their billionaires. Boo-hoo! Can we pour one out for the poor billionaires? Oh, they're not gonna afford their 7th yacht for the year. Oh no.
Unreal Engine, FL Studio, Clip Studio Paint, and I
use Clip Studio. As a point, it's probably worth mentioning that this is, if anyone who has aspirations to be an animator or, GFX artist or whatever, people who wanted to get into the creative industry, it is very much an expectation that there are so many tools out there. There's no such thing as a wrong choice, though. You're using what you think would work best for your idea. Like, I would love to learn some more of these softwares. I really would. I'd love to use Unreal. I'd love to use Toon Boom and Harmony more. I'd love to incorporate things like some more of these sound design softwares. It's just, there's only so much time in the day, and I spend 8 hours a day streaming generally. So trying to figure all this out, trying to dedicate enough time, you have to pick and choose your battles. And right now, I'm focusing on my streams, my slop. When the donathon's over, maybe I will have time to start learning. But hey, until then, I get to sit here with brain rot. Yippee!
Clip Studio Paint, and I love each and every one of them. But I'll tell you a secret. I had ulterior motives for breaking up with Adobe.
Again, I know it's funny to lambast Adobe. They are still a valid choice. They're just becoming less relevant. Oh, Linux.
Ending my reliance on Adobe finally gave me the confidence to experimenting with a new operating system, and I was determined to learn about the terminal.
Terminal?
Flatpaks, and of course,
I'm terminal online at this point.
Something that I didn't quite grasp about Linux early on, but I've come to really love and appreciate about it, is that it's built for you to customize and really make your own. So you might think...
Real question. Do we think he was sponsored for this video? I'm going to say a big fat no. I think this entire video is just spite at Adobe. It is a man who has had his tether broken way too many times and is out there giving the rest of us an informed opinion on alternatives to Adobe. You don't like Adobe? Are you tired of Adobe stepping on your balls every morning? Well, either go and talk to Makari for a more enjoyable ball stepping, or here's some alternatives that can help you enjoy your life.
That there's
without ball stepping, unsolicited.
Well, it's designed for you to install whatever sound
logic
panel
paths.
you want.
More logic paths.
People have
See what I
made
mean?
heaps of them. It's basic for a reason, and that's to give you a solid, lightweight base for you to build on top of. A popular distro is Linux Mint, and when I first used it, I
really
thought,
not used
I like
to
the taskbar. I like the way
James
the
talking so
sound.
calmly.
I like the way it feels like Windows. But
I think this is why this video is kind of weirding me out. I'm so used to James Lee's kind of crack-headed, wild antics. The fact that he's sat there just talking calmly like this is like some informative YouTube video about some product or like some, it's like one of those typical YouTube review channels where people are reviewing Toys R Us products or something. It's weird to see him doing a video in this format. Like, God, he must he must really fucking hate Adobe to have completely neutered his like scatterbrained ADHD personality for the sake of being an informative video like this. Holy shit.
Even all that stuff is just a pre-installed graphical user interface called Cinnamon, which is installed on top of Mint. You can change it to something else. You can make it feel like Mac OS, or have no user interface, or some interface that looks like something that you've never even seen before. And it feels so snappy.
Those look like an indie game.
Why is it so slow on Windows to load a folder full of WAV files? And why does file search still suck?
What's this
I
guy?
used it on
Thank
my
you.
friend's Mac OS, and it was instant. That was 20 fucking years ago. I love that Linux isn't giving me.
You want to know what I believe was the defining point where people discovered how to become terminally online. There was a distinct point in our timeline in the recent past where the entirety of civilization went from being single screen CLR monitor users to discovering the delights of dual monitor setups. I think it was when dual monitor setups became a thing that was our defining evolution as a species to terminally online existence. No longer limited to only viewing your delights and pornography on one screen. Now you can watch your VTubers on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many screens you think you need to be able to goon on a day-by-day basis. That truly was a glorious evolution.
Me recommendations or pop-ups or trying to steal my shit. It just leaves me alone. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of headaches. And getting everything up and running is not exactly a wank in the park. But you know, a few years ago, you couldn't even run games on Linux. Now most of them run fine. It's just
Why
such a
are
good
you
time to
wanking
jump
in
on
the
board,
park?
and
I'm
things
so
are getting more
confused.
compatible as time goes on. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks,
But the thing I
Gabe.
like most about Linux is that despite the headaches trying to get everything to run, there's a real sense of passion and optimism in the community. It feels like technology made by humans for humans.
Right. And that's the difference, I think. Like, if you want to quantify the difference between most of these softwares in Adobe, what makes them different? Adobe is made to fill a checklist and a quota. Most of these other products are there to fulfill the interest of the people using them. That is the difference. One wants you to be shackled down and commit your entire existence to them, like a VTuber wanting you to tier 3 sub to them, and the others are just friends that come round for a drink and a bite and help you with your homework.
Brings a freaking tear to my eye. It reminds me of when I was just first getting into computers and all the things you could learn. Made me realize how much I've missed that sense of passion and optimism about tinkering around with technology. Yeah.
He just said the most millennial thing imaginable. Man, I remember when I was young and had whimsy, and then those people who were millennials like me have now gone through their quarter-life crisis and are now rediscovering their nostalgic whimsy from... Thank you, James Lee, for reminding me that I am ancient and rotting. You asshole.
I'd really recommend just installing Linux Mint to a USB stick, running it off that if you want to try it out. Don't worry, homie. You won't break anything. So everybody's been
I don't believe you!
Adobe and Microsoft
I don't believe you!
lately.
I can't
think
even
that
look
both
at my
companies
computer
have
without it
become a
smoking at the
symbol
moment.
Of just the general hatred that we all have towards big tech. But clearly for them, they don't give a shit how much we hate them. It's about whether you decide to leave.
Damn straight.
A lot of people would like to make a switch, but it can be pretty hard. I get it. It costs time, energy, lost revenue, and they
Ain't
don't
that the
make it
mood?
easy for you to just pack up and bail. It's simply much more convenient to stay with them. But I've got a little public service announcement about the true cost of staying in your big tech relationship. The technologies we use become an extension of us, interwoven into our workflows, industry, infrastructure, and meshed with the fabric of our culture
here we go.
and society.
James Lee moment.
It's how we spend our time and interface with reality. There is a brazen, perverse business culture permeating big tech. It's not
This
to
is what I
deliver a
said
quality
earlier.
product or solution, but to soothe, trap, and coerce you, to make you reliant, addicted, and dependent. Then they lobby, change the political landscape to their favor, to capitalize on the
Ah, here we go. This is the James Lee that we all come to know and love. Can't make a video about anything without somehow turning it into some politically vibed notion.
problems that they've fermented. The world is spiraling at the whims of a perpetual motion profit machine. A sick competition of power-hungry addicts out to brainwash you, drain your blood, then smash your molecules into shareholder profit. Brace your
Am I the only one that finds this sort of like demonically cyber voice immensely arousing?
cells. Truth bomb. It's up to you now to stand up and do something about it. Take action.
But I'm already
now.
sitting.
Value your privacy. Find ethical alternatives built by people who are not out to fuck you over. Because taking back control of our tools is one defense against the system.
James, please! James, you're spitting in my face, please! You can just talk quietly, I understand! I'm a corporate shill, please! Please, James!
We have this window.
Yelling is not a requirement, it's an option. You can talk calmly, I'll still get the message. Ah!
Payment. It's about preserving a relationship with technology that's made for us.
Pretty sure that's what I said at the beginning of the video. Oh, that's it. Hey, that's it. Awesome. Well, that was certainly an experience. So what's the what's the moral of today's video? Don't let people step on your balls.